Hey guys, I'm back from outer space. Kidding. Back from overtime, and I've got a childhood favorite for you. It's Willow. It's a movie to book, and the story was created by George Lucas and contains a few echoes to Star Wars. The movie and its novelization are relatively similar. The novel adds backstories and several layers of depth. But for the most part, the similarities to speak of are all the action chase scenes featuring the brave and dashing Madmartigan outmaneuvering the Nockmaar soldiers, and Willow nagging him for such recklessness, and Elora giggling and squealing the entire time, and the two brownies providing all the slapstick comedy. And now, back to the beginning. The movie opens with a summary of a prophecy that has Queen Bavmorda up in arms. Her goose will soon be cooked by a new baby. So she's having all the pregnant women arrested and jailed in her dungeons until this baby is born so she can banish it using dark magic. This is also in the book, along with some details of what an abject sadist she really is, finding amusement in pretending to set a prisoner free, only to loose her death dogs on them and watch them tear them apart. And also what a dark and depressing hellhole Nockmaar is. It's built on a volcano and there's no life in or around it, and many of the Nockmaar peasants are trolls. And more on those trolls later. So right out of the gate, the moviegoers were spared some of the levels of violence and depravity unheard of in a PG-rated fantasy adventure from back in the 80s. When the little baby at the center of this prophecy is finally born, the book gives us some insight on Sorsha that the movie doesn't. First off, we are supposed to believe this is an 18-year-old, even for 1988. And she's not loving this job she's been assigned, like a dungeon maternity nurse. No, she is an accomplished athlete I tongue-tied. She's an athlete and she's an accomplished hunter. So it's fair to say she'd rather be boar hunting. After the midwife spirits the baby away and then has to float her down the river and face the death dogs alone, the book explains how the baby survived the elements during her little boat ride right up to Willow's farm. The animals assisted. She is an enchanted baby, and she had help from the fish in the river and the bears and the deer. And when she finally banked at Willow's farm, the movie would have you believe that Willow wanted nothing to do with her. The book says otherwise. He was instantly flooded with emotion and took immediate responsibility for her, with intent to add her to their family. This is also the first echo of Star Wars. The baby, Elora Danan, is not unlike Princess Leia, unwittingly crossing paths with this regular Joe who is on the precipice of greatness and doesn't know it yet. Everything that happens while the baby is with Willow and his family at the Nelwyn village is the same. He is a farmer studying sorcery. He is at odds with the local prefect. His disappearing pig trick goes sideways just before death dogs toss their festival looking for the baby. And after reading A Bag of Bones, before deciding to leave the village as a group to save the baby, to the first Daikini in sight, is all the same from book to movie. It is just before they reach the crossroads that we get our first backstory. It is of the Nelwyn warrior Vonkar. He's an orphan and grew up fending for himself and educating himself through exploration. He wanted to see Tirazleen, the fabled to be the most amazing kingdom, full of life and joy and magic, so off he goes. But as he gets closer, no matter which direction he comes from, he cannot get to Tirazleen. There is always some kind of forbidding landscape ahead of him, and it always seems to be hiding something. At the crossroads, the book describes a setting that the movie has watered down. There's that row of crow's cages, and before Mad Mardigan makes his introduction, a group of scavengers called Pohas, only seen in the movie in the tavern, and it's the guy with the face tattoo. Anyway, they scavenge the piles of human bones in the cages and play a quick game of football with the skull of one of them before moving on. Then we meet Mad Mardigan, but not in a threatening light. He plays it cool and tries to get Willow and his group to feel sympathy for him, to give him water and let him out of the cage. And after the brief meeting with Eric also takes place, with the suggestion that there is history between these two. But more on that later. After much debate in both the book and the movie, Willow frees Mad Mardigan and reluctantly trusts him with Elora. And later on, but not too much later in the book, as Willow and Migosh are on their way home, they are descended upon by the Brownie tribe and brought before Charlindria. And now we're in for some good backstory and added layers as to why we are all here. In addition to the second echo of Star Wars, Charlindria had two students of sorcery under her wing, Fin Raziel and Bavmorda. And like the Obi-Wan and Vader dichotomy in Star Wars, Fin Raziel reveled in the light magics that commune with the elements and the animals, while Bavmorda clung to the dark magics and used them to get what she wanted. And obviously, what she wanted was power. Fin Raziel was engaged to the Prince of Tirazleen, so Bavmorda used dark spells to seduce him away from Raziel, but rather than fight for her man, Raziel turned her broken heart to nature and continued her practice until Bavmorda eventually married the prince and became the Queen of Tirazleen, had Sorsha, and turned Raziel into a rodent and banished her to an island. After that, Bavmorda found Tirazleen too cheery for her tastes, and so she cursed it and all around it, and put down roots at the foot of a volcano at Nockmaar. Now, Willow is back on the road with the baby, whose name he knows, Elora. The two brownies, Frangine and Rule, are their guides and our comic relief. They find a rowdy tavern to escape a downpour, and everything that could possibly go wrong does. They are threatened with cannibalism. They happened upon Mad Mardigan and Drag, and they're happened upon Sorsha and her posse from Nockmaar. The fight and chase that ensue are exactly the same from in the book and the movie, and the action sequences are very well written here. After they escape and are safe for the time being, there is a moment that is book only, just before the Blackroot debacle, when Elora gets hungry and the bladder containing milk is empty. A doe approaches and lets her suckle until she is full. And then it's off to find Fin Raziel and at this exiled island. And when Willow is on his way to the island by himself, he sees a boy, just a random boy in this shallow water who isn't in the movie. On the way back, after Raziel demands to see Elora, they see this boy again, and Raziel cautions Willow to kill him immediately. And what happens next explains why. The boy transforms into this big, vicious sea serpent that was part of Bavmorda's curse to keep Raziel exiled. Willow defeats the sea monster with one of his enchanted acorns and turns it to stone. There is also a brief little backstory on Frangine at this point in the book that is actually more about Mad Mardigan and Eric. As Frangine observed from a distance, they grew up in Galadorn and are also the third echo from Star Wars, with Eric being this same kind of slightly older mentor to Mad Mardigan that Obi-Wan was to Anakin. But the only dark side that could seduce Mad Mardigan was love. Eric warned him that as good as he was at sword fighting, he would lose his knighthood if he carried on with this woman. And that is exactly what happened. She snubbed him, he was dishonored and left empty-handed, and he took to drinking and womanizing, and Eric didn't want his trouble, so they went their separate ways. When the Nockmar soldiers, led by Sorsha, catch up with Willow, the Brownies, the baby, and Rizal, with a captured and bound Mad Mardigan, the book gives us all the reasons why all of them are arrested. The baby's enchantment has the potential to be contagious, so Bavmorda wants to include anyone in close proximity to her in the ritual to obliterate her. The next action sequence after Willow, Mad Mardigan, and Rizal escape their bonds is exactly the same. Willow fumbles the transformation spell ritual and turns Rizal into a raven. There's a disruption caused by the dust of broken heart that has Mad Mardigan acting like he's tripping balls on ecstasy in the book, but just has the hots for Sorsha in the movie. Then there's the sleigh ride on a shield, immediately followed by Mad Mardigan in a cartoonish human snowball crashing into a shed in a small village. And what is book only here is that when the Nockmar group raid the village looking for Elora, they threaten to burn down the entire village and kill their prefect if they don't relinquish their fugitives. Well, this small village isn't taking any more of Bavmorda's shit. They have Eric and his soldiers from Galadorn in their company, so they stand their ground. Their prefect loses his head and the village is burned. And the movie and the book reunite as Mad Mardigan takes Sorsha hostage and takes her with them on their way to Tir Asleen. As they get closer to Tir Asleen, they run into the same challenges that Vanguard told of in the book. All kinds of insurmountable terrain, but Rizal in her raven form help them navigate their way through it. And when they get there, without Sorsha because she scrapped her way away, out of, what's the word I'm looking for, a hostage ship, anyway. They see the village, frozen in time, literally. And when Willow fights a troll in the movie, this troll is just a hideous feral beast. In the book, the trolls are hideous, vicious humanoids. Anyway, the book and movie come together at this scene where Willow melts the troll with a magic spell and kicks the mass into the water, only it doesn't sprout two heads. More on what happens there in just a minute. Alright, Mad Mardigan. He finds the sword and the armor that feel tailor-made for him, and he manages to set up traps and barricade Tir Asleen while Willow is fighting this troll and kicking what he thinks he turned it into the water. The element of incidental comedy is only in the movie where Mad Mardigan is showboating with the sword and thinks he's intimidated the Nockmar soldiers until he turns around. That two-headed dragon is not what the troll turned into. It's just a coincidence in the book that the gelatinous mass that was the troll went into the water just as one of Bavmorda's spells awakens this two-headed dragon called an Ebersisk in the book. Also only in the book at Tir Asleen is when Sorsha is beckoned inside the tower and finds her father, the king of Tir Asleen, frozen but still alive and able to talk to her. And memories flood back and her coldness, her hardness is broken. And it's at this point in the story that Sorsha turncoats and joins Team Elora, just as Mad Mardigan, wearing her father's armor and brandishing his sword, does what he does in the movie. He catapults himself onto one of the heads of the Ebersisk and spears it through the throat. Its head goes boom and the whole beast dies, just as Eric and the Galadorn soldiers catch up with them. But also, in the movie and the book, General Kale is successful in capturing Elora. The whole group of Eric and his soldiers from Galadorn, Willow, Rizal, Mad Mardigan, Sorsha, Frangine, and Rule make their way to Nockmar to demand the safe return of Elora and are turned into pigs by Bavmorda. And the movie does a good job of creating the slow and agonizing contortion from human to pig that the book describes. But here in the movie and the book diverge a little in the tent when Willow transforms Rizal back into her true form. In the movie, we see her go from raven to turtle to ostrich to tiger to herself. In the book, it's raven to gelatinous mass to deer to child to young woman to herself at her age. Then the movie and the book come back together for Rizal to undo the pig curse and for Willow to come up with his gopher plan. And in the meantime, the ritual is well underway. The final battle at Nockmaar has the final Star Wars echo. In the book, where the antagonism between Sorsha and Madmartigan comes around just like it does between Han and Leia in The Empire Strikes Back. He repeats what he said earlier while high on dust of broken heart, in kind of a sarcastic context, and he kisses her. She then leads Willow and Rizal up to Bavmorda's chambers to stop the ritual and save Elora. At the same time, the old enmities and bad blood between Eric and Kale and Madmartigan come full circle when Eric is slain by Kale, just as he and Madmartigan are back on good terms again. And then Madmartigan fights Kale to the death in a most dramatic fashion. Up in the tower, the confrontation between Rizal and Bavmorda is the same between book and movie. There is just an added layer to one of the attempt on Sorsha. She was going to use a spell to break her down into like a subatomic particle, which is why in the movie she cut down every one of Bavmorda's priests that advanced on her, before Bavmorda attempted to fly her into a spiked wall and was interrupted by Rizal. Willow's fight against the animated objects is a few shades darker. Behold. Up Bavmorda rose, blasting the wand out of Rizal's hand and sending it spinning on the slimy floor. Ghastly creatures sprang out of whatever it touched. A chair turned into a 5-headed coil of snakes, each with an agonized human face. A thing so appalled at life that it swarmed into a window and hurled itself out. A table became a gelatinous mass with myriad teeth that slid gnashing at Willow. He pounded out its life with a bronze candlestick. In the end, the book and the movie have Elora protected and Bavmorda hoisted by her own petard by Willow's disappearing pig trick. The closure of the movie would have you think that Madmartigan and Sorsha lived happily ever after as Elora's adoptive parents, as Willow headed home as a hero and a sorcerer. Only half of that is in the book. In the book, the winners return to a newly freed Tir Asleen, where the king is still very much alive. And Sorsha does step up as Elora's adoptive mom, and Madmartigan is knighted and honored. And that is all for Willow. What a way to come back. This was a fun read with several layers onto a movie I already enjoy. If you like this video and my channel in general and would like to help me grow, you know the drill. Like, comment, share, subscribe, sponsor. And I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next book and movie.